Hey, my name is Nick. I'm a quality engineer here at Ibis Cycles. Today I'm going to show you a couple things on the Oso. One will be how to replace the lower battery mount bolts, which are under this cover. And the second will be adding a washer, or a set of washers, between the lower battery mount cradle and the lower battery mount itself. First thing we're going to do is take off the battery cover and remove the battery. So I'll use this 6mm Allen key, take off the cover, set it aside, and I'll use the same 6mm Allen key to remove the battery. One note, I've got the bike in the stand upside down. If you don't have a stand that allows you to put the bike upside down easily, you can also just set the bike upside down on the floor. Just be careful with your screen that it's not the first thing that contacts the floor. I've got the bike at this angle because I'll be installing washers up here, and I don't want them to fall into the seat tube in case I'm clumsy and I drop them. So I'm gonna put this up here so that if they do fall out, they don't roll into the head tube. This is the lower battery cradle. It's what the battery connects to and is mounted to. There are two bolts back here that you can see. Those are what connect the cradle to the mount. We are gonna remove those and add washers between the cradle and the mount. So now I will be removing the lower battery cradle so that I can get the washers in there. I'm using a T30 Torx screwdriver in this case, but a standard L wrench will work as well. So there are two bolts back here. The threads are pretty long, so I'll just remove them one at a time. Just remove the bolt. Set that aside along with the wrench, and then we're gonna pull this cradle out of the frame. I've put the bolts back into the cradle along with 1.5mm worth of washers on each bolt. This is the lower mount. Normally it sits in the frame like this. I've got it out of the frame just for demonstration purposes. So you'll put the cradle back in the slot, and then with your T20, you will thread each of these bolts back into the mount, like so, and thread that whole thing in. This will be in the frame. So now I'll put these back in the actual mount in the frame. Lining it up is a little bit difficult sometimes, but you should be able to feel where the slot is, and then get your wrench back there onto one of the bolts. Now that I've finished tightening these, they are both torqued to 2 Nm. So now that I've got the cradle back in, I'm going to put the battery back in. So I'll align the back and put the front back in, and then tighten it down and torque it to 12 Nm. I'm going to take off the down tube cover and the motor cover. So I'm going to use a 2.5mm on the down tube guard bolts. Take both of those off. Set that aside. Use a 3mm Allen on the front motor cover bolts. Set those aside. And a 4mm Allen on the rear motor cover bolt. Loosen that up, take that off. If your bike has bolts with 4mm Allen bolt heads, we are going to replace those with either a T30 or a 5mm bolt head bolt. So I'm going to take out each of these one at a time so that nothing in there is dropped. So I've got one out and I've got a replacement. What I'll do before I install it is put just a little bit of Loctite 243 on the bolt threads and put that in. This is a T30 head, so get that threaded in there, basically snug, and then I'll just back it out one full turn. Then I'll replace the next bolt. Now I'm going to adjust the lower battery mount and battery cradle. What I'll do is I'll use a 6 or 8mm Allen key with a ball end, and I'll place it in the back of the down tube. You want to avoid any cables and wires and just apply pressure directly to the center of the battery cradle. So I'll put that in kind of next to the motor, And then I'm just gonna tighten each of these T30 bolts with my just wrench first. So get those each tight while applying pressure with the Allen key to the back of the cradle. And then I'll swap over to my torque wrench. This is set to 15 Newton meters. And I'll just torque each of these bolts. Now that we've got all the adjustments made and the washers installed, I'm just going to put back the motor cover and the down tube guard, as well as the battery door. The torque specs for these two are all 1.5 Newton meters, so just over hand tight, and the battery door is just a 90-degree turn till it's locked.